All right, welcome everyone to the Board of Commissioners meeting for Public Utility District #1 of Skagit County. Had to get all that out. I've done it in a while. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Well, I would be looking for a vote on this consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Fourth quarter financials. Let's get right into it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the year-end financial report for 2025. One thing I'll just mention is that they're a little bit preliminary on the capital side. The revenues and operational expenses should be close to what the year will end up, but we continue to process invoices all the way through March, and based upon the materiality and when the work was performed, we will put the corresponding invoices and expenses back into 2025 for work that was done and completed in 2025 as we close out the financial statements for the auditors. All right. So with that, we ended the year with about $26.2 million of reserves. That's broken down in $16.3 million of general revenue, system development revenue of $8 million, just over $8 million. And then we accrue for debt service payments in the coming months, and we have about $1.9 million of that. Out of that total, $22.9 million is invested in the state local government investment program. They do short-term, less than 1 year investments for governments in the state of Washington. And we basically use the 2-year Treasury rate as a benchmark for that. The LGIP tracks very closely to the Treasury rates. And you can see this goes all the way back to January of 2024. We started out about 5.2% return on the investments. And then over the 2 years since that time period, we ended up down here at 3.8 million, or 3.8%, sorry, in December. So our $22.9 million earned about $75,000 of interest in December. So that money is all turned around and used for capital projects or operational expense of the district. New meters. Last year we sold 120 new meters. You can see the last 4 years we've averaged about 133 new meters or services per year. But going back to 21 and before, we sold a good 100 more meters per year in those 3 years leading up into the last 4 years. So that's money that goes towards system development fees. It impacts how much consumption is going forward. All of those meters, that revenue is money that we're no longer getting. But it's a pretty constant. You can see 120, 150, 120, 135. So that could be the new standard, I'll say it that way, going forward for our added meters to our services. The changes, most of those were in residential and multifamily. You can see 66 added residential, 24 multifamily, and then some changes in commercial, government, and fire protection, 1 each in our farms and government. They don't change very much, and we add and subtract during the year, so that's the majority of the changes there. That leads into the consumption comparison. This shows the last year by month for the last 3 years of consumption. And basically, I'll point out a couple things on the screen here. 25 and 24, basically no change. During the year, we had slight variations back in 2024. You see an increase in February and March greater than in 25, but it balanced out. So we were flat over last year. Both years were 10% below what happened in 2023. And you can see on the graph up here, big month in April. So that would be consumption that would be mostly in February and March, and then it's billed and received in April. So there's about a 2-month lag of consumptions, and again in June. So during this time period, this could have been a leak in February when we had a freeze, but usually in April it starts being drier. People start watering, more consumption, and then those are billed in June. But you can see all of 23 from April through October was substantially higher than what we have established in the last 2 years. So again, we had a slight change. We off Fidalgo to the city of Anacortes to take care of and manage. So that was about 680 customers, and that happened at the end of 23. But also just consumption is based on weather and utilization and then consumption. So Mark Semmer has given you a lot of information on the average per capita consumption, and it continues to go down. So I think both on sales of new meters and consumption that we're going to have just steady, slow growth. There shouldn't be major changes unless there's a new commercial activity or a loss of a commercial activity that would change our consumption numbers greatly. Water sales ended the year at $33.4 million. Right behind the line, you can see that all the percentages were up. We went up about 5% on the residential and multi. So that's based on rates, consumption, and also new meters. The other categories, commercial, government, and agricultural, they had less new meters. That went up, I think it's 3% behind the line there. And then on resale and irrigation, much smaller numbers, larger increases, 14 and 12%. All of them ended ahead of budget. We budgeted $32.3 million, so we're about 3% ahead of budget for the year. Operating expenses right now sit at $19.8 million. This is one area that probably will go up a little bit more as we process some of the late invoices that come in. But you can see the major categories, salary, wages, and benefits, overall increase of 6% from the prior year. Most of that is in salary, wages, and benefits. We did have one added new position at the water treatment plant, which started in 24, but was fully staffed all year long in 25. So there's some of that increase is attributed to that. Also up at the water treatment plant, power costs, chemical costs are up 9%. Repairs and maintenance, this is general repairs and maintenance throughout the district is about 17%. And then the next two categories kind of go together, tech, SCADA, support, and professional services. A lot of this is outside consulting, engineering, or professional service contracts for projects that are done throughout the year. That is down from the prior year, but you see this is the one category that we actually spent more than what we budgeted just in this category in tech SCADA. But a lot of these were started in 24, carried over into 25. This goes back to just parts and also timing of the contractors that do that sort of work, limited supply. So most of it's just timing again. The other one I'll point out here is that on the construction in progress, this number, the negative number here, is salaries, wages, and benefits that we capitalize to capital projects. So this number goes down when this number goes up, and it's attributable to the type of projects that we're doing. Engineering bills to capital projects, and we also have maintenance staff and a field staff that will bill to a capital project. So as the capital project increases, more of that money can be capitalized and taken out of the operating expenses. I wanted to break it down a little bit differently. Instead of showing it by department, this is the same numbers for operating expenses. So you see 2024 salary and wages, and then 2025 salary and wages. This is the net change so far between 25 and 24. So salaries and wages went up the $743,000, and then this is the 6% change. And again, out of the total increase of $1,206,276, you can see the top three categories here: salary, wages, and benefits, chemicals, and insurance are a majority of that cost increase. So some of those we don't have any control over. Obviously, insurance is industry driven. We were relatively happy with a 14% increase. The industry's going up much faster than that, but it's a big increase, $125,000. Chemicals used at the water treatment plant and in distribution and in the lab. Relatively few reliable vendors for those chemicals. So we do go out and get quotes and try to keep those costs in line or the increases, but chemicals was one that continues to go up at a very rapid rate. We did see invoices that had tariff increases and tariff charges for chemicals. So again, limited suppliers that can meet our specifications. The other category, this is broken down in different areas, so it's district-wide. I point out utilities. This is water, sewer, storm, garbage, gas, all of the utilities for our facilities. And so some of this is increasing not only for the rates of the utilities, but also to bring online this facility. So we did have both facilities for at least part of the year being occupied. And you know about the changes to the old building. It's kind of being mothballed right now. So we've lowered those costs as much as we can until we talk about later tonight the plan for that building. But some of these costs were to do the move in anticipation of the move and should go down during this next year. Utility and other taxes, interesting. This is related to revenue, directly proportional to the revenue, except for the state of Washington now revoked some of the services that were exempt from sales tax. So there's more sales tax being charged on additional services. We're all going to have to pay that going forward. And then customer service, supplies and services. This is mostly this 642 here, increase of 54,000. This is all of the services for the billing. We use a billing service. We also use a lockbox service, and then Paymentus, which processes our payments. And so that number goes up as more and more people pay online, but it's an efficient way to collect our payments. Postage actually went down a little bit. We are trying to use more online bill presentment, encourage customers to go there for their bills. They get them more reliably and faster than the post office. That's the number one thing. Training and professional services, you can see these last categories actually decreased. Training and professional services, district-wide training, it doesn't mean we're not doing it. It just, some are cyclical every other year. Some people don't have to have training every year. Technology, SCADA support, we talked about that one. And then professional services. Again, we had some big engineering and consulting contracts in 24. We didn't use all that money, or it was capitalized in 25. So you see a decrease there. And then the last number, it's a large change, but it's a negative change. So this is, again, the amount of salaries and labor that we can capitalize. So this number goes up, the operating expense number goes down. So it shows up as a negative change here, but it's not part of the $1.2 million increase there we have there. So any questions on that? It's a different way of showing all the expenses. I think it's a fair representation of district-wide expenses, because we do budget, like Jay's department has all of the district-wide training in it. So if I just showed Jay's department, he looks like his budget's going up, but it's really for other things. And same with warehouse. We do that for the district. And so, all right. Capital contributions. This is other revenue that we receive for doing work orders or service orders for others. Also system development charges and fees that we collect. And then donated plant, our developer projects that are developed by them, installed by them, and at the time of acceptance, they donate their new infrastructure to the district for us to maintain and control and maintenance on that in the future. We did $1.9 million of capital contributions this year. You can compare that. These are what we did each category to the budget. The budget is actually a little over $2 million, so we're just shy of the budget, but it all is in this category here, which is donated plant. So it's a non-cash transaction that we would book those assets. You can see we budgeted a lot more this year than we received. All the other categories we pretty much meet or exceeded, which are the actual cash accounts that come into the district. So most of the donations are just based on timing. So as they close out projects, that can go up and down very quickly. All right. So quick summary, total revenues ended up at just under $37 million. Back in October during the budget, I forecasted about $36.5 million. So we're plus about $400,000 from that forecast. Operating expenses, 7% increase, but below budget and also below the forecast of $20.5 million. Capital expenses, we'll talk more about on the next slide, but they came in. Last year was our biggest ever on CIP, so that was just under $27 million. We are right now sitting at $9.3 million of capital expenses for 2025. We did a big payroll AP batch this afternoon, which has probably another 600,000 of capital expenses in it. And this number will continue to go up, as I mentioned before. I did forecast this one a little bit higher, $12.7 million. So we'll probably end up a little bit below that, but we'll have some more increase before do the final books. So debt service is no change in that. Income or deficit, we're about $3.1 million. And then the reserves, as I mentioned before, is $26.2 million. So as those invoices get pushed back into 2025, obviously that number will go up. The income deficit will go down. Well, this number will change a little bit, and then that'll come out of the reserve number. So, but it'll all equate out to the capital construction again. This is what we've done in the prior 3 years. In blue, this was actual, so $75 million over 3 years. Very large CIP capital project plan. This is the difference in 2025. We're at 9.3 million. We budgeted 15. Most of this differential is made up of 2 projects. The water treatment plant has a big generator project for $2.4 million, and we've only just spent a little bit of that money that was budgeted in 2025. You may recall we were going out for a grant and a loan and some federal money and some state money. Actually, we just applied for state money on that too. So we've slowed that down until we get some of those results in, because we can't get reimbursed for all those grants and if we've spent the money already. So that deliberately postponed or pushed that project back a little bit. And the other one is the Alger pipeline replacement project for $1.6 million. That was originally going to be a pipeline replacement project that we did. And now Mark has negotiated with WashDOT so that they will do the work, so there won't be double the flagging and double the road closures, and it'll be better to do that one. So that one's pushed back a little bit towards WashDOT's schedule too. And then the other thing I'd point out here is just the change. So this color is the 2025 budget, and we anticipated doing a lot more in the next 3 years. During the budget cycle, we talked about projects and affordability and spreading that cost out. So the projects remain, we spread them out a little bit, and you can just see that we are anticipating doing about $16 million here, just under 25 million. And so we do have 3 big years of CIP again. So that continues. We're balancing the reserves that we have plus loans and grants and any other funding that we can get to it before we go forward with those projects. So that's all in the works, and we hope to get good news in the next couple months on that. A little bit more information on capital projects. Again, the $9.3 million broken down by description or category on the left. And then on the right, this is just the biggest projects in each category. So you can see Mike Demers has been busy at $1.2 million of developer projects. And then those were the 3 biggest developer projects there. Operations and admin. The Potlatch RO plant was it delivered today? Did you? Delivered it here today as an in-between step, and then it'll go out once we can get the SCADA and the electronics organized and purchased and installed. The RO plant will be installed in the next couple months. The Gilligan valve automation, this is a good project. The more free water we can take from the creek, the less we have to pump. And that's working. Coordinated pipes, these are other relocation. That's the money we spent on the Alger pipe. So out of 1.6, we spent 1.2 million on the budget so far out of that one. Those are reimbursed, so it will be fully reimbursed by the grants that we already have. And those are the other projects. So. Any questions?
Would it be possible, I know we had this discussion during budget season, just in regards to capital projects and then kind of an end of the year summary of how much was budgeted for the capital projects and then how much was spent on the capital projects and which ones will be rolling into the next year. Just like an overall summary, just kind of how we have had in the memos sections. But table shape would be really nice for like an end of the year summary for.
On pipeline projects, is that what you mean?
No, just capital projects, the 2025 planned capital.
Okay.
What was budgeted, spent, which ones are completed and which ones are rolling into the next
Yeah.
year, just so that they're fresh in our mind that
Right.
those projects aren't completed yet, and we will expect to see them to continue to be approving invoices for them.
It may take a little bit of time to do that because, like I said, we just
For sure.
processed $600,000, I think, today on AP. So probably the best cutoff time will be March.
Okay,
and
great.
then we could do that and look forward to. Almost all the projects are very close, like the RO plant. We took delivery today, so there'll be another invoice that we'll pay in January, and then the installation will happen in the spring. So,
Mhm.
but I can give you that.
That'd be
certainly.
great.
So, yeah. Anything else?
No,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, so we will move on to audience comments. Seeing staff in the room. And if you're online and use the raise your hand function, not seeing anyone there either. All right. George.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, everyone. I have a few things to update everybody on. After our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, I went down to Olympia to attend the WAPUTA meetings as part of their association monthly meetings, which included the legislative reception on the 14th of January. And at the reception, I had a chance to speak to a few of our legislators, not as many as before. It was a little bit less than we'd expected, but did have good meeting with one specific legislator, which I think was very helpful. We were told that water projects are going to be a priority in the legislature this year. Even though it's a short session, with all the other budget issues that are going on, they're still trying to make water projects a priority. So the advice that we got was to submit on a water project. Going to Olympia, our plan was to submit on the generator. Obviously, it's for the treatment plant. It's still a water project in our eyes, but I think to the legislators, that's a generator is different. You know, it's an engine. It's got some other uses. And so we did submit on the generator. Last week, I put in 2 applications. One was for $500,000 grant for the generator. So that went in, but I also submitted an application for $1 million for the Panorama storage tank. That's a good water project. And that one really fit the bill for what we were advised to do. So we've got 2 applications in there, and I think it should help our odds of getting something. If water projects are a priority, the storage tank is a good project. It serves a lot of people. So yeah, so we've submitted those. I got some questions as they were submitted from one of the representatives, responded to that. Everything should be good. And being a short session, we should know in 4 to 6 weeks, really, whether we're going to get anything. So got our fingers crossed. Let's see, as was mentioned earlier, so we did take delivery of the new RO plant for Guimas. So that was done. It got galvanized and everything at the plant, and we're going to store it here until we're ready for installation, until all the panels are built and everything. So Mike was saying March or April, we should be ready for that. And after that's done, we can discuss, because we talked about it with some staff too, trying to get out there and look at it, see the new plant versus it's an all-day trip if you want to go out there and look at it. So it's worth it just to see the new one versus what's there right now. So we can talk about that in the spring. I did send an email out, and it applies to commissioners as well, about the annual award nominations for Wapuda. So there's a list of awards that they do at the annual conference in April. The biggest one I think that we get interest in is the educational scholarship for kids graduating high school. So just for everybody as well, if you have any high school age kids, seniors that are eligible for that, let me know. And then if we get applications, we can only submit one on behalf of the PUD. So if we get multiples, I'll bring them to you, and then we can decide which one we want to put forward. So hopefully we get a couple. And then just lastly, our micro hydro projects. So we've got two of them obviously, but the last one at 9th and Highland, it was featured in an article by Water World. So it's an online and a newsletter publication that is mailed out. And we were selected as one of their 2025 top projects. So that was really cool. Kevin submitted an application on that. So it's to honor outstanding drinking water projects, recognizing complexity, community impact, and innovation. So that was cool that we got recognition on that. Water World is the magazine. So if you want to link to that article, if you want to, I think we have a PDF of it too. If you want that, we can send it to you. And then Kevin and I are also speaking with somebody at AWWA tomorrow morning for an article in their Connections magazine, something they publish every month as well. So they got wind of what's going on, and they're interested in learning more about it too, and us getting more presence in the industry, which is good.
Sure.
And I think that's all that I got, unless there's any questions.
No. Well done.
All right,
Right on. Thank you.
we can keep going.
All right. So Human Resources Department. Kathy, excellent.
Good evening.
I'm going to make sure that I speak into the microphone. Now it's on. Okay, I was realizing today that it's been since July that I had my last update. So it seemed appropriate to do just kind of a year in review. Then I'll talk a little bit about what our priorities are for this coming year. So the previous year in review, let's do a staffing update. So our staffing or hiring slowed down just a little bit from the previous year, which was kind of nice because we had a lot of other things going on. But new hires in 2025, we hired an AP finance person. We hired a customer service rep, yard maintenance in our operations department, and then 2 maintenance workers. And then we had quite a few promotions, both last year and then the beginning of this year so far. We had 2 customer service promotions from a level 2 to a 3. We had a storekeeper that came from maintenance because of a retirement. The safety manager was promoted from safety coordinator. Water treatment plant from a level 3 to a level 4, a meter foreman. And then we had 2 meter promotions from level 1 to 2. We had a maintenance promotion. Our yard maintenance worker went to a maintenance worker position, and then maintenance worker 2 to a 3. So quite a few promotions, people getting certifications and just trying to advance in their careers, which is awesome. And then retirements, we had none in 2025. We have 1 anticipated in 2026 that we know of, although that person has not formally given notice yet. That we know for sure. We have a couple of people that have talked about it, but until we know for sure, we're not going to count on anything. And then current staffing, we are currently hiring, well, we were going to hire for 1 maintenance worker. And then after we placed the ad and we had a lot of good applicants, I think, 150 total-ish, somewhere in there. So a lot of applicants, we had another person give notice. I think they're going back to their previous position at another entity. So now we're hiring for 2, but it was great timing because we already had a lot of great applications. So water treatment plant operator will be spring or summer, not quite sure yet due to the aforementioned retirement. And then engineering, we don't know exactly, or I'm sure Mark does, but we haven't definitively decided the timing on that yet, but that will be to be determined. All right. And then also last year, we had quite a bit of union bargaining. We wrapped up the bargaining for the field group in early 2025. And then we also did bargaining for the customer service group, and we wrapped that up at the end of the year. And, sorry, no bargaining in 2026. It seemed an appropriate meme that we know of. There's always that possibility that we could have to bargain specific topics. We will be working with the union. Part of the agreement for the customer service group was that we would work with them to implement a labor management committee. So that is one project that we'll be working on, but no bargaining that I know of. So I'm very excited about that. All right. And then also just some large projects that we worked on last year. We did a compensation study for pretty much all employees. We did a non-rep study, and those changes were implemented at the beginning of 2026. And I know we've talked about this a bit. There's a lot of steps involved in a compensation study. There's, updating all the job descriptions, making sure that everything's reflected about what people are currently doing. There's gathering and assimilating all the data, which is a lot. And then job description comparison, making sure that the majority of duties or similar duties match up, and then working through that methodology. So it really is very time consuming to do that. But of course it's important because we did make a commitment to be market-based. And then we also did one for, at the same time, we gathered information for represented employees because we use that as part of our bargaining processes. So that was a big project for us. And then also one of the big things that we worked on last year as part of the building move is the HR records. And we actually started well in advance, just trying to make sure that we were prepared, but there was still a lot. We did records digitization. All of our personnel files, for example, are digitized. And then also there was just a lot of HR records, not only that, that we accumulated over the last 11 years that I've been in my position, but a lot of prior records as well. So really just working with Shannon from a records perspective, and getting some assistance from Cecily, or records, or not records. I'm totally, records. Okay. I thought I was saying her title wrong. So just a lot of, we had a large backlog of information. So that was a big focus for us. And then moving forward, since we have no bargaining this year and we're not moving into a new building, we're focusing on what our goals and priorities are for 2026. And this is, obviously not there's more things than what are on here, but the major focus that we're going to be looking at is we're going to be expanding our succession planning and internal employee development. That's something that we kind of put on hold for about a year, but we do want to look ahead because we do have a management team that are fairly similar in age. And so we want to make sure that we're developing people to move into those positions and also just helping people with their development. And then currently, I'm working on an RFP for benefits administrator. We've had Alara that has been helping us with that for 5 years now, but it's time for us to do an RFP. So we'll be proceeding on that. We are also, and this is something that Krista is going to be focusing on as a large part of her year, is a more detailed tracking system for employee leaves. We do a great job. I'm not going to say we don't, but leave laws and the intersection is not getting any easier or less complex as the years go by, for sure. And then, our staff, just because of retirements and, over the last several years, our staff is skewing younger. And so subsequently, we have a lot of babies. We had a lot of life impacting events. And so we are looking at a better workflow that we can track that and make sure that we're in compliance, because it really is just like a big puzzle. So lots of moving parts there. Also, one of the things that we'll be focusing on is providing some manager and leadership training, 2 specific areas that may not be it, but HIPAA training due to increased regulations on medical records, and then also discrimination. We want to stay in compliance and make sure that we are promoting best practices and also helping our leadership team with the tools that they need and helping them manage liability, both for the PUD and personal, because there's could be a lot of personal liability for managers and leaders if they're not doing what they need to be doing. So, all right. I think that's it for me, unless you guys have any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to some new business, let's talk about delinquent LUD assessments.
So this is just a report to the board, an annual report for the status of all of the LUDs that we have outstanding. If the board chose to take action, the RCW requires that we do notifications and take legal action by March 1st. And so that's why at the beginning of each year, we do this report, and then we can talk more about that as we go. So ask questions. Pete's here to answer all the tough ones. So this is to show you just a long-term trend. The number of LUDs, and these are people that have missed 2 delinquent notices. So that's 2 years of payments. So LUDs are billed at the beginning of each year in January. It's a one-time billing for the entire year. And so we track this. The number is 19 this year. You can see it goes up and down a little bit. And then the amount that's outstanding continues to increase for those few LUD owners that aren't participating and not paying what they agreed to pay back at the day. So that's it. Nick, can you go to the lower chart too? Thank you. So this is we have 9 current LUDs on the left-hand side there. You can see the next column is the life of the LUD. That's in years, how many years that the owners had to pay off the LUD. The year that the assessment was due, so the first 5 there are all expired or past due already, and then Skagit View Village there in the middle is due in 2026. So at the bottom of all those, the next column over, you can see the number of parcels. We had over 1,000 parcels combined in all of these LUDs over the year. The remaining is down to 74. And then we also give the total assessed value there of 5.9 million. That's actually the assessment, how much was paid to the district. And the remaining is down to $142,000. So we're making good progress on one hand, but on the other hand, it's the same few people that were against the LUD, didn't want to be part of it, but have refused to pay. Some of them have not paid at all, and some have just stopped more recently. So you see that there's 19 total now with 2 or more delinquencies, and that delinquent amount is 60,000 out of the 142. So unfortunately, each year that one's going up, and the remaining assessment is going down. So it's becoming a larger and larger portion of that. But we are making good progress. There's just 1 or 2 people or owners, parcels involved in the top 4 there that are really not participating. And so what we've done in the past is just continue to monitor that. They're also usually not paying their property taxes. So we track the county's property tax foreclosure sales. It basically takes 3 years for the county for them to move on that, and we get excited they're on that list, and then somebody will pay their property tax. So somehow they continue to remain there, but we do pay attention to that, and we get notified from the county on those foreclosures. So what's been most successful is payment plans, which we have 4 people on payment plans. We haven't had anyone sign up for those recently, but we just try to get them on a monthly payment plan of anything so that it keeps them at least not accruing more penalties and interest at the very least, but sometimes it'll just help them pay it off over the long term. And we just wait for a sale, a transition from the current owner to a new owner, and that's then the time that the liens will get paid off and were made whole at that time. So prior, we did go and have legal action against some of these property owners, and I think it's fair to say that the judge ruled in our favor, but we weren't eligible for any legal fees, so we spent money getting back to status quo, which is you owe this money and there's a lien on your property. So is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're in a good position
We do send out notices. We continue to try to contact them. We'll continue to work the accounts for at least the ones that are just on the edge or going into that installment. The one in Panorama and the one in Alger, we just know that they're not going to respond, but the other ones we do contact. So any questions about that? There's no action required unless you would like the executive director, finance, or the legal person to take action on that, but it is a report that we do each year.
Discussion?
No.
Any interest?
No, no interest.
Nope. Stay the course.
Yeah, stay the course.
Bet. All right, and then we'll flow right into the accounts receivable adjustments for uncollected.
Okay, accounts receivable adjustment for uncollectible accounts. We work these accounts. This is all of the water accounts that we have. This is just to show you that we did $33.4 million in sales. What we're suggesting that we write off is $31,814. It's 0.1% of our sales. So it's a very small number. There was 149 accounts and the average was 214. You can see the prior years, other than in 2022 when it jumped up to 92,742. This was related to COVID. We had a lot of people that just stopped paying. There wasn't a lot we could do at that time. And then subsequent to that, it's dropped right back down to $38,000, $42,000, $31,000. So the write-offs this year is less than what we've done. $10,000 less than what we did last year. And again, these are accounts that we've worked. People move. We can't contact them. Their addresses aren't valid. They've lost contact, very transient area. It happens frequently. People are moving in and out. But we work the accounts internally. And then each month we send over to Skagit contract bonding to work the accounts after us. So these are the accounts that have happened all year long. The total is $31,000. It goes to Skagit bonding. They in turn start working the accounts. They do it all the time. And so once these customers either try to establish a new rental or buy a house or a car or need a credit check, they are successful in collecting on these accounts after we've written them off. So this year we collected just over $12,000, $12,964. That's down slightly. We usually average around $17,000 in collections. So, and that could be from not only this year's write-off, but all the prior years. They work the accounts until they think that there's no longer any reason to work the accounts. And so that money comes back to us on each month. And that would be what we were asking for. The action tonight would be to authorize the general manager to write off these accounts of $31,814. Oh, that's another breakdown of the locations and the numbers and the customers. I was going to point out too, the reason it could get up to $300 is in our policy, we don't do a disconnection until it's over $125. So we have a lot of people that their bill would be $100. We're not going to do any collections on that one or do a shut off. So it could be that that same house has another $110 next 2 months later in their billing. And so you're up to $220. And at that time, we would start collections and they would have a shut off notice and then the $80. So you could easily get an account to go 4 months and then add $80 on and any other charges if they tamper or anything else onto it. We then would take hopefully we would have a deposit on them of $225. And so this would be a final bill amount, less the deposit or any payments that they made. And some of them are just, it's 4 months worth of billing basically, and then they disappear. So that's how the numbers could get up to a 300. Not too many of them are. You see the average is 214. So usually the deposit helps us recover most of that, and then this would just be over and above that deposit amount. So that's kind of the cycle that it goes through. So on an account.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so that's a bunch of new business. We've got, appreciate the safety updates in there, Jay. Thank you for that. And also that budget to actual information is always useful and cheerful. And of course, we've got water in the reservoir. We'll keep it that way. Commissioner comments?
None for me.
None.
All right, I don't have any either. Go Hawks. And we will now go, let's see here, we will adjourn to a executive session to consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered per RCW 4230-110-1C.
Say 5:30, no action?
Till 5:30. We will reconvene at 5:30. No action expected.